Okay, I thought I would go over how I prep piece of artwork before I start sculpting and how I do basic organic sculpting. So what I've got here is a little, this was a plastic model that I scanned of, this is the leg off the alien creature. And I'm going to use this to go in and start sculpting this character. Okay, I'm going to build a base mesh that can be taken into Mudbox or ZBrush to detailed. Now, all this detail that's in here, okay, this is not what we would want to model in our base mesh. Our base mesh, we're just trying to get the basic shape of this and have good polygon flow. All of this detail is what we would do inside of the sculpting package like Mudbox or ZBrush, okay? We can do the sculpting in it, and then there's lots of ways we can get it out. We can pull the heavy mesh out. A nice way to do it is pull some of it out in a normal map or even pull it out in a displacement map to apply back to our mesh later. So one of the things I do is I build from splines most of the times. Now, a lot of people do poly pulling. I still see people doing box modeling. I think box modeling is old and archaic. It's what people used to do before they had better modeling tools. And some people still use that technique. I find a lot of novice people want to do it because they think it's easy. And the problem with their stuff is they get finished with it and it looks like they built it out of a box. And so if you can tell you're building it out of a box, then you don't want to do that. Okay, so to prep this, the first thing I want to do is when I draw a spline, splines are white, and so it's hard to see them on kind of a white background. So I come in here and take a layer, and then I'm going to take the layer and I'm going to fill it with a color. Okay, now it doesn't matter what color you want to fill it with, but one of the things I would tell you to do is make it a low chroma color. You want to make it a low chroma color. That way, when you're bringing it in, it's not so electric that it's in your face and you can't tell what's going on. Okay, so I normally come in here, put it like on a multiply, and I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. So I'm really just trying to tint this so when I draw with white, it's easy to see. Okay, and then I'll just kick this out. Now, I can tell you that Max, which is what I'm going to be using it has a tendency to not show up 72 DPI images very well, so I'm going to kick this to 150. Now, this is not really getting me any more resolution than I already had, but Max's internal system of displaying, I find, works better with something that's 150 DPI than 72 DPI. So then I was going to save this out, and I was going to save it out as a Targa file. Okay, I always use my textures as Targa files. And I'll just call this alien leg tracer. Okay, and I already have one in here. Let's just say this is number 2, and then we'll bring it bring it over into Max. Okay. Okay, so let's go over here into Max, and I'm going to sculpt in the front viewport. So I'm just going to come in here and make a plane. Now, by default, I don't want all these subdivisions in here. I see people leave them in here all the time, and it drives me up the wall leaving them in there because I don't need all that. So I zero this out, and then I'll go ahead and move it and zero all of these out down here so it's at the center of my construction area. So I don't really care the size of this. Now, it's kind of the proportions I need, but I'm not. I see people all the time says, "Oh, you need to go over here and measure all this." You know, I don't need to measure all that. That's just all crap. Okay, so I'm going to convert this to a poly. It's just a dead poly now, and we'll bring up our material editor so we can put our material on here. Okay, so I'm going to drag in my bitmap. Okay, and I'm just going to put it on a standard shader. Now, I use standard shaders most of the time when I'm doing work like this. I don't use them in my rendering and production because I'm going to render Mental Ray, and I'll use Arch and Designs or some Mental Ray shaders. I don't really use the standard shader because it's kind of a stupid shader. But for what I'm doing here, I just need a stupid shader. I don't want something with reflections and stuff on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this on my object over here. Okay, so let's pick it and assign this. And then we're going to want this to be in a shaded mode, and you'll see that once I have it on here, I can't see it. That's because in Max's material, you have to come in here and click this button right here. So on this bitmap, okay, and so you can see my bitmaps over here. There it is. That what I'm doing is I'm going to click this button, and then I'll be able to see it on there. Okay. Now, by default, it's not the right proportions, and that's just fine. So we got it on there, can see it. So now all I have to do is to come over here and I'm going to add a UVW map to this. If I can actually get down here. Okay. UVW map. And then what we want to do is come in here and do a bitmap fit. Okay. And a bitmap fit allows me to fit it to the actual. Okay, so I'm over here and I'm going to pick it, and then what this will do is size this so it perfectly matches and doesn't have any stretching in here. Now I'm going to hit G on the keyboard, turn my grid off. Okay, you'll see this tiles on here. Now there's a couple things I can do with this. I can come in here and I can tell it to not tile. Okay, and then basically it's going to show my standard shader up on here. But what I do is I go back down to my edit poly here and go to vertices. Now I'm going to click this button, show end results, so I can see the top of the stack. Let me hit J to get rid of that bounding box. Okay, and then I just grab these vertices and I'll just pull them in. Turn off my snap. And then I can just trim this down. And there it's ready to go. Now, I'm going to eventually want to freeze this, but what happens in Max is when you freeze something, it turns gray. So what we want to do is to actually right-click, go into its object properties. Everything in Max has properties. We'll go into its object properties. And over here, we're going to turn off Show Frozen in Gray. Okay. Now, another thing I'm going to do is if you don't watch it when you're sculpting, it's on the construction plane here. So when you're drawing your spline, it'll kind of go in and out of it. So I just slide it back a little bit like so. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and freeze that, and now I can draw on top of here, okay? Now, there's a couple of ways that we can build this. I'm going to show you different ways. Now, the typical way most people build is they do what's called strip modeling, okay? So they come in and they take a polygon, okay? And they're going to take it, and then let's go ahead and convert it to a poly, which start with a plane. And now we can start moving our vertices around to start building the shape that we want. So we start building the shape, and then we're pulling edges, okay? So you just hold down the Shift key, and I can pull an edge, okay? Shift key, pull an edge. And go up here. Let's turn our edge faces on so we can see it. And so then we're just taking this and sculpting it into our shape, okay? Now, what you're trying to do at any given time is to keep your angles at a 90-degree angle. You can't really keep them at a 90-degree angle, but that's just kind of what we're going for, okay? And so this is how people build, and then they just pull edges, and then they manipulate, and then they pull edges, and they manipulate, and that's how they do it. Okay, that's one way to do it. Nothing wrong with the way of doing it. That's not how I work, but that's a good way. Okay, strip modeling. Okay, now here's how I work. I work based off splines. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to start right up here, and I'm starting to draw in the shape that I want. Now, I'm drawing these very crude because I'm still going to be building subdivision surfaces. Okay, so what I see a lot of people doing and make mistakes is they'll come in here and they'll go, get this just right, and I'm going to put a million little vertices in here to get this right. That's crap. We don't want to do that. Or they'll, they're doing all these little, want to do Beziers and get this all smooth with Beziers. That's all crap too. We're doing subdivision surfaces, so it's kind of like chiseling in stone. Okay, I want big, chunky pieces. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. It's all going to be subdivided. Okay, so I'm going to get that down to there, and then I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way back up. Now, and specifically started at the bottom this time, whereas I started at the top the first time. And really the reason I'm doing that is because it's going to mess it up, but I want to be able to show you that and show you how to fix it. Okay, so something like that. Now, you'll notice I don't put them together up there, and it'll make sense to you in a little bit why I don't put them together, and I didn't put them together down here. Because I'm going to build across these. Okay, so what I have now is two different splines in here. So what I want to do is just attach these. So I'm going to come over here and click attach and attach them together. So now they're one thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here under my vertices, and I'm going to come in here and show vertex numbers, and this will actually number these so that I can see the numbers of how many vertices I have. Now, one of the things you'll see is we have what's called first vertex. You'll see this number 1 right there, and it's yellow. And you'll see this one over here is 16. So I have 16 vertices in this line. I don't know how many I have in this one because I got number 1. I can go down here and look. We'll go down here, and it's got 13 on it. Okay. Now, the thing about it is later on, I'm going to come in and do a cross-section on this. And I'll show you. I'm going to do one now to show you how messed up it is, and you're going to get something like this. Okay. Now, the reason you're getting that is because our splines are going different directions, and you want your spline to go to the same direction. Now, there's a couple of ways to do that. The one I have a tendency to do is I just pick where I want the first vertex. So that's first vertex. I want this one to be first vertex. All I have to do is pick it and go over here and click the button Make First, and now reverse that order. Okay, that's one way you can do it. Another way to do it is to come over here and actually pick the line itself if you're in your spline mode, and you can hit reverse right here, and that'll reverse it. So either way, you can reverse it, but now what we want is those going the same direction. So now if you do a cross section, it won't be right, but it'll be better. At least they're getting something like this. Now, you can see I've got triangles in there, and I don't really want triangles. And the reason is because when I drew this, I didn't really pay attention to how many vertices I was putting in there. I was just trying to get the shape. But now I want to kind of look at it and see what's going to happen. So 1 is going to connect to 1. And 2 is going to connect to 2, 3 to 3, and 4 to 4. You see 4 goes up here, and I don't want that. I want 4 going to right here. So it lets me know I need a couple more vertices in here. Okay, so I'm just going to go over here and hit Refine, and I'm going to put another one right there. So that'll go across there. This one will go across here. I'm going to put another one here, okay, which will go across to there. Then this one goes across to here. So now I can kind of modify these because I kind of want to keep it going in kind of a where these are going kind of like in a 90-degree angle, okay? So I've got, let's see here. Let's turn this off for a second. Okay, so I got 6 going to 6 right here. And that's not too bad. I'll do something about like that. Okay, 7's going here. Now, what I really want is 7 to be right in here. So go across here, then 8 to 8, 9 to 9, 10 across. Might pull this down a little bit to get these right across from each other. The more they're at a 90-degree angle, the better. Okay, so 11 to 11. Now, you can see here, I got 12, 13. That's off. So I'm going to go 12 here to go across 13 there. And 4 is okay there. Now, this is a little off here. So I'm going to put point here for 15, go across, 16, go across there, 17, go across there. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm ready for my cross section. So now when I come in here and I do my cross section, you'll see that's got a nice poly flow all the way up and down it, all by starting drawing splines. I mean, some people like to pull edges. I'm initially a drawer, so I like to draw. Okay, so at this point, this is just a set of splines, and I'm going to right-click and just isolate this right now and hide that construction plane. Okay, I'm going to shut my door here, turn my vertices off, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put a surface modifier on it. A surface modifier is a modifier that takes vertices and puts a surface on them. Now, the trick is that it only understands triangles and quads. Okay, we'll put a gray shader on this. So if I had an n-gon in here, it wouldn't surface. Okay, you also have a threshold in here, so if this is too big, it won't work. You have to make sure you get your threshold down. And also, I'm going to show you this by default. The surface defaults to 5 steps, and we don't want that. What that actually does is it subdivides this into 5 pieces, and I don't want that. Okay, what I want is a 1-to-1. So in other words, I want this on 0, so as soon as I convert this, I get a 1-to-1 poly on this. Okay, so now it's at the point I'm ready to collapse it, convert it to a poly. Now, this is just 2D right now, and I want to start making it 3D, so I'm going to grab this edge, I'm going to ring that, and I'm going to connect that. And I think I'm going to connect it with 2. Click OK, and then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to start pulling this out and making it dimensional. Okay. And then, of course, you can put a symmetry modifier on this to give you your other side. That'll be on the Z-axis. And that way, when I work on one side, I can see what's going on the other side. And then I'll start sculpting this. Okay, I know the ankles are going to be thinner, so I'm going to pull that in. Okay, this part's a little bit thinner. And like I said, I'm just making a base mesh, so I'm not spending a lot of time doing a lot of really sculpting that I might have used to have done a long time ago, because a long time ago we just built everything inside of Max or Maya, and you didn't have a sculpting package. But now we have a sculpting package, so all I'm trying to do is get it to be pretty close. Okay, now I can bring up my plane again. And I'm going to do Alt-X, turn this into an X-ray mode, and then I can see it a little bit better. And I know that sooner or later we're going to subdivide this. So I may want to come in here and add a mesh smooth or a turbo smooth on it, and you'll see how it's going to shrink. So what I want to do here is come down below it, where I can start grabbing some of these vertices and pulling them out to counteract that collapsing. So if I go show end result, it'll show me the end, and I know I can come back out here and I can kind of pull this out a little bit to keep it more in line with what it's really going to need to be once it's subdivided inside of a mud box or ZBrush. And so I'm just going to exaggerate my underlying polys a little bit to get a little bit closer to what I want. And so it'll look a little swelled a little bit. Once I turn off the subdivision, but that's okay because we know it's going to do this once we get it into our sculpting package. So this is making a base mesh. And that's looking pretty good. Now, if I want some more control, I can always come in here and add. So I can say, well, maybe I want some more control in there. So I'll pick this one right here, and I'm going to ring that, and then go ahead and connect that. And I don't want to connect it with 2. Let's go back to default, connect it with 1. And now I've got a little bit more control in that area. Okay. You really kind of want to keep your quads kind of uniform. So in other words, we want to try, I mean, in a perfect world, all of our quads would be exactly the same size. They'd all be square and exactly the same size. Now, will have some that are a little, skinnier, like this one a little bit longer, this one a little shorter. But overall, we're trying to keep them so they're pretty much the same. Okay, so that's a pretty decent base mesh right there. And so at this point, I can dump the mesh smooth off of there, go ahead and just convert it to a poly, baking that symmetry in there, and then I can come in here and I can cap the bottom right here, just cap that, and then I want to go ahead and cut it into quads, so I can just connect that. I can connect this, and that'll be okay. That'll be tries, but those are okay. And that'll be okay. And then, of course, we'll want to do that on the top, too. And really, in the end, this would all be out of here anyway. We wouldn't have that because this will go into the body right there. So it would be something like that. And so this is ready to go in. Now, I may decide I want to go ahead and put a loop down here to subdivide this to keep it a little bit tighter. So we could go through here and we could ring that, put a connect in there, and we could just slide that down. And we could also do an inset into this down here. We want to go by angle. and then just do an inset, and then there's another locking loop there, which will kind of keep that crisp when it's subdivided, to keep that hoof kind of down there. Okay. And then that's a pretty good piece, and then that could be ready to go into ZBrush or Mudbox and to be sculpted. And that's how I work. Okay, my workflow is splines, kind of chiseling in the shape, dumping a mesh smoother, turbo smooth, doesn't matter which one, they're a little bit different, but for the most part they're the same. So I can kind of get see what it's going to do when I subdivide it inside of a ZBrush or Mudbox. And then I'm ready to export this as an OBJ or an FBX to go into ZBrush or Mudbox. By the way, one of the kind of the tricks, a lot of times if you're exporting this out as an FBX to go into like Maya or Mudbox, it might turn it to triangles. If you'll come up here and you'll put a turn to poly modifier on this, turn to poly, don't bake it in, but just leave it on there, then export as FBX, then it'll keep all of this as quads. Okay, so hopefully that helped you a little bit. All right, thank you very much.